Our electric drill along with a 3/8" bit is used to drill a hole completely through the rear crossmember on both sides. Next, we place the gas tank against the bottom of the frame. A 3/8 diameter by 2.5" long bolt is passed through the crossmember and the strap which goes against the bottom of the crossmember. Flat washers are used on both sides along with lock washers and nuts. The appropriate tools are used to tighten the bolts. If we wanted, we could use lock nuts instead of lock washers. These are perfectly acceptable for most applications. To connect the gas lines we previously installed to the fittings on our fuel tank, we use rubber fuel hose available at any auto supply store. We purchase about 2 feet of 1/4" and 5/16" inside diameter hose along with the proper stainless steel clamps. We tighten the clamps securely. Again, we are slightly out of sequence with the replicar manual. In most cases, the exact sequence is not important. We find that installation of the steering is easier prior to engine installation. A tape measure is used and a line is marked 4 inches below the mounting flange on the steering column shaft. We find this method works better than the measurements in the manual. Our China marker is used to draw a line around the white plastic area of the column as shown. This piece must be trimmed to allow enough brake pedal clearance. Supporting the column carefully in a vise, we use a hacksaw to cut the tip, and the plastic is trimmed. We are very careful not to cut into the column. When we trim the piece, we cut only through the plastic. In order to connect the steering column to the rack and pinion assembly, we need to fabricate an extension, as the original Chevette column is too short. We refer to the instruction manual following the details precisely. We need to obtain a good quality solid round steel shaft, obtaining approximately 18 inches of both 3/4" as well as 7/8" material. We follow the instructions in the manual and have the upper end machined to the specifications shown. We were fortunate to find a Chevette with a tilt steering column, which alters our upper measurement slightly over what the standard column measurement would be. Here we have all of our pieces, along with a unit that is available from the factory fully assembled. We have our 2 lengths of shaft along with 2 universal joints. One of our universals has bore diameters of 3/4 inches on each end. The other has a bore diameter of 3/4 inches at one end and 1 inch at the other. 2 pillow block bearings have been obtained. One has a 3/4 inch hole and the other has a 1 inch hole. We assemble the pieces as shown. After we are sure that our extension is correct, we have all pieces welded together at the joints. In addition, we use either tension pins or bolts to secure the universals to the shaft. This is done in addition to welding. When we use tension pins, we also use a piece of wire. We run this through the center of the pin and wrap it around the shaft. Before we install our steering column and extension, we secure a nylon bushing to the firewall with 2 metal plates bolted through the firewall. This will seal the opening between the passenger compartment and the engine, preventing fumes or water from entering. Our Chevette steering column has been cleaned and painted. The column is placed in position and the holes in the upper mounting brackets are aligned with the mounting holes in the steering column support bracket, which is part of the frame. We place the Chevette bracket under the frame bracket. The lower column mounting tab is attached to the firewall side of the lower frame mount bracket. A 5/16 inch diameter by 1 1/4 inch long bolt along with a flat washer, lock washer, and nut are used to secure the lower mounting bracket. 2 3/8 inch diameter by 1.5 to 2 inch long bolts are slipped through each side of the upper bracket from the top and secured with flat washers, lock washers, and nuts. At this point, we hand tighten the column mount bolts. With the steering column mounted, we can now install our steering extension. The upper end of the extension has a 7/8" pillow block placed on the shaft, while sliding it into the firewall bushing and into the steering column shaft. The 3/4" pillow block was placed on the lower shaft before the universal was welded to the shaft. The flange at the end of the steering column that was at the end of the Chevette column has been reattached to the flexible coupling disc on the rack and pinion shaft. The pillow block bearings are placed against the mounting brackets located on the driver's side of the frame. We have marked and drilled 2 3/8" holes in each bracket and secure the pillow blocks using 4 3/8" by 1.5 to 2" long bolts. The tip of the steering column shaft is tightened to the front flange with the original Chevette hardware. We now bolt the steering column securely to the chassis. A 5/16" hole is drilled through the steering column and extension on the inside of the firewall, and the column shaft is secured to the steering extension with a 5/16" diameter by 3/4" grade 8 bolt. Later, before we drive our new car any distance, we will have this upper joint welded. Since we have decided to use old-style custom gauges in our new 1929 Mercedes SSK replica, it is necessary to install a new water temperature and oil pressure sending unit in the engine block. We keep our shop or service manual handy for this operation, as we will be removing a few engine components. The fan, along with the top pulley and belts, must be removed. Then the timing belt cover needs to be unbolted and removed. Now we have access to the water temperature sending unit. We unplug and unscrew the original unit. A new water temperature sender, manufactured specifically for the replica, comes with the gauge set. We screw the new unit in place and tighten it. We always use Teflon tape or liquid Teflon sealer on threaded couplings such as this. The original wire is attached to the new unit with the correct electrical connector, and the engine pieces we removed are reinstalled. Located just to the front of the starter below the intake manifold on our engine, the original oil pressure sending unit is unbolted and removed. A 1 1/16" 6-point deep socket, extension, and ratchet are used to perform this task. We must retain the original unit as well as install another sender, so we need a T-fitting. A heavy steel nipple along with the brass fitting came with our new gauge set. We screw the brass fitting onto one end of the nipple and install the original sending unit. The nipple is threaded into the engine block and tightened. The new sending unit that came with our gauge set is threaded into the other opening of the brass fitting, working from the front. We connect the original wires to the Chevette sender. Later, we will connect a new wire to the second unit. Since our Chevette shift lever will be installed in a new location, further back from the transmission than the original location, we must lengthen the shift rod. After unscrewing the fitting from the original Chevette rod, we thread it onto the end of our new rod, which we either have made up to the specifications listed in our instruction manual or obtained from the factory. The old rod is removed and the stud is reinstalled in our new rod. Then, we install our new rod with the original retaining clip. Tie wraps are used to secure the rod at the rear of the transmission. We want to keep it out of the way as we install the engine. Moving to the front of our chassis, we are now ready to install the engine and transmission. Here we have a type of engine lift that can be rented from most local rent-all stores. We've securely fastened a chain to the front and rear of the engine, making sure that the chain is of sufficient strength to support the weight. Many engines will have engine lifting hooks. These are really L-shaped brackets with holes through them. A chain is passed through the holes or a hook is attached. Either way, the important thing is to have a chain that is of sufficient diameter and strength to support the engine, and that the chain is securely fastened. Slowly, we lower the engine while we push it to the rear, guiding the transmission through the cutout in the firewall. This is not a difficult job, and while having someone to assist us would be helpful, it really is not necessary. A little patience is all that's required. Although this is the most convenient type of engine hoist to use, there are other types which work just as well. We can use whatever is available, as long as it's sturdy and intended for the job at hand. We want to engage the hole in the motor mount brackets mounted to each side of the engine onto the studs on the rubber motor mounts. When the motor mounts are in their proper position, we thread the original nuts onto the studs. We do not tighten them fully at this point. Next, we roll our floor jack under the rear of the transmission and place it under the counterweight. We slowly elevate the transmission so that the mounting studs are slightly above the bottom of the main frame rails. We can now install the original Chevette transmission crossmember to our new chassis. The mounting holes in the crossmember are aligned with the mounting holes of the frame brackets. Two 5/16 inch diameter by 1 1/4 inch long bolts are placed through the holes on each side and secured with flat washers, lock washers, and nuts. The correct socket and extension are used to tighten the bolts. Now we slowly lower our floor jack, allowing the two studs on the transmission mount to pass through the mounting holes in the transmission crossmember. From below, the original nuts are threaded onto the studs and tightened with the appropriate socket and ratchet. Now we move to the sides of the engine and securely tighten the motor mount nuts. We repeat this procedure on the opposite side. New front shock mounting brackets came with our replica assembly kit, and we will now mount these to our front end. We will need to replace the original shocks once these mounts are attached. The left and right mounts differ, and we make sure that the open side of each mount faces the center of the frame or toward the engine. The new mounts are placed against the front of each lower control arm. We measure 7 inches from the center of the lower control arm mounting bolts to the outside edge of each mount. We then mark the hole locations against the lower control arms.